Most wars are remembered in years. Some are carved into history through decades of blood and sacrifice. But one war was over almost as soon as it began. In 1896, a conflict erupted that lasted just 38 minutes. Not hours, not days, 38 minutes. An entire war, fought and finished in less time than it takes to sit down and eat a meal. And yet, in that brief span, an empire made something unmistakably clear. Power does not always need time. Sometimes, it only needs a moment. Zanzibar, an island off the eastern coast of Africa, where trade winds carried spices, ivory, and influence across the Indian Ocean. It was a place where cultures met, and where empires quietly tightened their grip. By the late 19th century, the island had fallen firmly within the sphere of the British Empire. Its rulers still wore crowns, still held court, but their power moved within boundaries set by foreign hands, and those boundaries were not meant to be tested. On August 25, 1896, the sitting sultan died suddenly. No long illness, no slow transition of power, just absence. And in that sudden vacuum, ambition moved quickly. Within hours, Khalid bin Barghash stepped forward. He entered the palace, gathered supporters, and declared himself the new Sultan of Zanzibar. It was a bold move, fast, decisive, and completely unacceptable to the British. To the British, this was not just a local dispute. It was defiance. For years, they had ensured that Zanzibar remained aligned with their interests. Leadership was not simply inherited, it was approved. And Khalid had skipped that step entirely. So the response came swiftly. An ultimatum was delivered. Khalid was to step down immediately, leave the palace, and surrender his claim to the throne. If he refused, there would be consequences. The deadline was set, August 27th, 9 a.m. Clear, precise, unavoidable. Inside the palace, Khalid considered his position. To surrender would mean giving up everything: power, authority, legacy. To resist meant facing the British Empire. He chose to resist. Inside the palace grounds, preparations began. Khalid gathered what forces he could: palace guards, loyal supporters, and armed civilians willing to stand with him. Cannons were positioned. Barricades were erected. Windows became firing points. It looked like a defense. It felt like resistance. But it was something else entirely. Outside in the harbor, British warships began to arrive, one by one. Large, steel-clad, silent. Their presence alone shifted the balance. Their guns faced the palace, unmoving, waiting. There was no rush, no panic, only certainty. The morning of August 27th arrived heavy with anticipation. The air itself seemed to pause. As the clock moved closer to 9 a.m., tension stretched thin across the island. Inside the palace, men waited at their posts. Outside, sailors stood ready at their guns. Time narrowed. Every second felt deliberate. 9 a.m. came and went. For a brief moment, nothing happened. No shots, no movement, just silence. The kind of silence that makes you wonder if everything might still be avoided. Then 2 minutes passed. At 9:02 a.m., the silence shattered. The first British shell tore through the palace. What followed was not a battle in the traditional sense. It was overwhelming force unleashed with precision. Cannons roared from the harbor. Shells slammed into walls, ripping through wood and stone as if they were paper. Fire spread quickly, feeding on the structure, climbing higher with every passing second. The palace, once a symbol of authority, began to collapse in on itself. Inside, chaos replaced order. Men shouted over the thunder of explosions. Smoke filled the air, thick and blinding. Debris fell from above as the structure gave way piece by piece. Khalid's forces fired back, but their resistance barely registered. Against the power of British naval artillery, it was like trying to hold back a storm with bare hands. The destruction was swift, relentless, and final. Within minutes, large sections of the palace were engulfed in flames. The roof caved in. The defensive positions vanished beneath rubble and fire. There was no regrouping, no second line, no turning point. At 9:40 a.m., it was over. 38 minutes after the first shot, the war had ended. When the smoke cleared, the scale of the imbalance was undeniable. Hundreds of Khalid's defenders lay dead or wounded. The British forces had suffered almost nothing in comparison. And Khalid? He was gone. In the chaos of the bombardment, he had slipped away, fleeing the palace and seeking refuge in the German consulate nearby. The man who had claimed a throne just days earlier had lost it in less than an hour. With resistance eliminated, the British moved quickly. A new sultan was installed, one who would follow their direction without question. Control was restored. But this had never really been about restoring order. It had been about demonstrating power, clear, immediate, absolute. There would be no uncertainty about who truly ruled Zanzibar. Some wars are fought because both sides believe they can win. Others are fought because one side needs to remind the other that they never could. The Anglo-Zanzibar War did not stretch across continents. It did not drag on for years. It barely lasted long enough to be understood by those caught inside it. But its message traveled far beyond the island where it was fought. In just 38 minutes, an empire showed the world what resistance would cost. And sometimes, the shortest wars in history are the ones that speak the loudest.